It's October 16, 2012, and you're watching Transit 22 live from Hippopotamus. I'm your host, Eva Faye.
And I'm Yalanda, guest hosting for Big Rat, who's resting up after covering the Hip Hop Festival, A3C.
And today we're going to be bringing you a special edition of Transit 22. As you already know, tonight is the second presidential debate. And so we're bringing in a panel of these wonderful people, activists here in our community, to talk about faith and politics later in the show. But until then, let's talk about our trending topics, which I hear are very interesting, Yalanda. What is going on?
Well, on our timeline, we saw people free-falling from space and women getting uppercut on the bus. Now, I wonder if Romney and Obama can top that.
Well, we'll see all that tonight on the presidential debates. But let's go back to free-falling from space. I mean, I've jumped out of a couple planes or two, but from space is a whole different issue. I mean,
that's very brave, but I try to keep my feet solid on the ground.
For some people, the thrilling part is not their thing, but this was all brought to you by Red Bull, who sponsored a young man named Felix. And, you know, I wonder if he was drinking Red Bull at the same time. Did gravity really have it?
I'm sure he got a lift.
And was he doing the sugar-free or the,
That's the question.
But also, what's up with the uppercut on a bus?
Now, this was interesting because this was a training video. Now, we know we have a war on women, but for a bus driver to take matters into his own hands and dealing with a patron, we're watching now to see what the repercussions are. Yes, he was trending. Yes, the video was popular, but what will be the real repercussions to an employee taking this action on his own?
But until then, we're going to bring you to our panel where we talk about faith and politics. As everyone knows, the elections are just a few weeks away, and at the helm are various issues of the elections. So we decided to highlight a few of them this week and talk about how faith may affect the elections and how one, maybe just you, might vote to the elections this year. Today we are talking with Deadwyler, who serves as Director of Social Innovation for the Atlanta-based solutions firm Think for Good. Yalanda, Lattimore, founder of Dryerbuzz.com, has over 20 years experience in the media, and she is also a culture critic and buzz authority. We are also speaking with Navneet Singh Narula, who is an award-winning serial entrepreneur and a global change leader. He is also the Chief Leadership Officer at United Sikhs, a UN-mandated humanitarian relief NGO. All right, now that I give you a brief description of these amazing, wonderful souls that are sitting with me here today, I'm going to let them explain a little bit what they do and what they do for their community. Okay, Mr. Navneet. Well, you have a wonderful, long description to your title. It's very, very exciting, and I'm sure there's so much behind it. But tell me what it is that you do with United Sikhs.
Thank you everybody for having us here. I'm really glad to be part of this conversation. I think this is part of everyday life. As a Sikh American, I go through this in politics, but also economic environment and the values we find. United Sikhs is a global humanitarian relief disaster NGO, which fights for values and humanitarian rights, and basically fighting for rights for all people, including Sikhs who have been disengaged or been ignored for a long time. So we run disaster reliefs across the world, but now we're fighting hate crime bills, bullying bills, equal employment opportunity in the United States.
Okay, Miss Yalanda, tell me a little bit more about Dryerbuzz.com.
Okay, well, Dryerbuzz started as a newsletter in the community and into the salons. And of course, with the internet boom 10 years ago, we decided to take it online. We started out in community organizing, but we realized the key piece that was missing in community organizing was a media piece. And we weren't able to really establish the relationship we wanted with existing media, so we decided to go into the space of new media to be able to tell the stories of community organizing, people like Navneet and organizations and what they were doing in the community. They really needed a storyteller, and we became that storyteller.
All right, Trey, now it's your turn. We say the best for last men on this panel. So tell us a little bit what you do for our community here, because I've heard a lot of great things about it.
So we started Think for Good a few years ago to kind of focus on open source community development. I think one of the things that we've noticed in the community development space and the nonprofit space is that usually it's only a few people that are actually coming up with solutions. What we try to do is bring in communities to actually develop community solutions. I like to call it open source community development. It's a great way and an opportunity for different folks from different disciplines, from different all walks of life, social and economic levels, to kind of come in and actually put things on paper, but also implement in their own communities. They have full impact and full input into that impact as well. So we come up with ideas by bringing people together.
So you're the thinker of the community.
I try not to be the thinker. I'm more so be the facilitator of thought within the community.
Okay, Transit 22, now we're getting into the juicy part. Today's panel is about faith and politics. And with these wonderful people here and what they do for the community and their position, I'm sure they have a lot of insights of what is going on right now with our elections. So currently we're going through all of our debate. Anyone want to chime in on how they're doing? Because I know right now they're talking about who did it best or who's winning or who's slacking. I mean, I know it's really still hard, it's so fresh at the beginning, but anybody have one first point of view? Don't be shy.
I think from an entertainment wise, I think the vice president's debate was definitely top of the ladder there. I think from an entertainment piece, definitely Joe Biden and Paul Ryan actually did a great job of keeping people engaged. It was like, wow. So.
Very true. I mean, Joe Biden's a very charismatic speaker, and he does very well. I've seen him before. Speaking of Joe Biden, recently in his debate, he made a comment about his belief, his personal belief. And, you know, as much as we try to separate the church and state, it doesn't ever really happen. So, do you think that his comments, although he has said that he doesn't want to push that upon anyone and he doesn't want it to be part of this, you know, a true decision on the election, but do you believe that what he said is going to be a big decider, decision maker for some people?
I think the faith part has a lot to do with the social space. It's not necessarily leading in the national headlines, but it is talked about a lot in the social space. It's talked about a lot with the interest groups. Those interest groups are going to go and demand different things they need from these candidates. So we won't see it in the news or in the headlines, but if you're not watching the social space, you won't see who really will have a grip on candidates when it comes time to vote.
Well, and I believe most viewers to social media now. Everyone's finding out the news first thing on Twitter, on Facebook. So if they're on social media, I mean, that is going to be, you know, where they're going to make their decision. How do you feel?
Well, so it's interesting to me. I think we've talked about faith and politics in this, right? So before even the debate started about, you know, the religion, even if you look at the Democratic National Convention, right, the platform and the fact that God was not in there was a huge problem. Even though faith was there, that was not good enough. God needs to be in there, right? And I think as much as we try to separate church and state, you cannot win this election if you don't have a strong belief. It doesn't matter what you are, right? So, and you know, there was a great buzz on social media saying, hey, would you elect an atheist conservative or a liberal Christian? It was an easy part, a liberal Christian. Having not a faith, no faith means you cannot have voice and you cannot have power. So the conversation is, we don't even look at the qualities or the positions of the candidate anymore, and what faith you are and what you do. And I think that's a wrong conversation. But that's why you have to have a faith to be the president of the United States. It doesn't matter what it is, and you have to be strong in it. And we're seeing this in Romney's campaign. Governor Romney's pushed it, I'm a Mormon, and you have to have a faith. So I think the conversation of faith and politics is so imminently connected. You cannot win the presidential election if you don't have a strong faith of some kind.
So I think that there's some overarching themes that you can kind of go with. And so, and I think from someone that is not affiliated with the Mormon Church, it's not affiliated with with Christianity or the Catholic Church and or the Catholic Church as well. I think one of the things that we have to look at is what are the overarching things of the moral standing that they have within that religious sect. And if you agree with those tenets, then go with that. One of the things what I appreciate about you know, different faith traditions, is they give you set up a moral fabric for you. And truthfully, as you go into politics, you go into governing, you're going to need, you know, how you believe, how your morals are set will also dictate how you govern, what policies you push forward. So I think if you have an idea, if you don't believe that they are necessarily your religion, but you can believe in the same things that they believe in, which a lot of times you'll find a lot more commonality than there are a lot of the differences. Then go there.
Very true. And you know, me myself, being born and raised in a Christian home, I think sometimes people just connect themselves like it's a tradition. Well, I'm going to be a Republican because these Republicans have been Christians for years and they're always going to lead this country in the right direction. Or I'm going to be Democrat. I think it's so much of people just wanting to be traditional. And I think sometimes they just need to break those chains. It's not breaking away from faith. It's just breaking the chains on your mindset to be a little bit more open. I don't know if you all feel the same way.
We go from, the issues, in the Latin community or the Hispanics, or, there's the immigration debate, and then you have the how do you bring the interfaith conversation with the Muslim community, and the fact that there's the Sikh Americans who've been under the hate crimes since 9/11, the most number than any other. So there's these so many issues that play into the health, right? Into the fact that we are so divided that the one candidate says, I want healthcare for all, the other says, I'm going to take it all. Right? These are conversations. I'm going to have immigration and have the Dream Act. The other says, no way, we're going to block it and put. These are totally distinct, so your morals, and I think Craig brought it up, your values, your religion, your morals will define which way we go. So we have a clear choice, we like it or not. Yet we don't have a clear choice because we believe in a little bit of everything. Right?
And at the same time, too, if you see a candidate leaning more to one side, the average voter doesn't understand how much that faith group is advocating for themselves.
Yes.
And so when the candidate has to make sure that they kind of spread themselves evenly, but are different faith groups advocating evenly. You might have a faith group that's not reaching out to the candidate, but then you have one group who's always in the face of the candidate, they're supporting the candidate.
Absolutely.
And so the other voters begin to think that even though this president or this candidate said they have this faith, but they're really working with this faith.
Right, absolutely.
And so that kind of confuses the voter.
Totally.
It really does. And I think at this point, some candidates are kind of forced to be an advocate for certain communities or certain subcultures because I don't know if they're just trying to gain some more votes or that's truly how they feel and that comes from their faith.
Well, you got to think about it in the media. A lot of people respond to the media based on what the media says. Think about at the end of the debates, the talking. Of course, they all watched the social sphere and see what was trending.
Sure.
But the conversation that week, all the way up until the end of the week when the pundits were on the talk shows, media drove that conversation. And so, people follow. If the media sets the talking points, then people are going to follow that. And then not necessarily, I didn't see people really watch it and pull out their own.
Yep.
Right.
So this is a really conversation. We talk about faith. One of the things, Israel is a huge piece of this big conversation in this political election. And one of the thoughts I had was, I was talking about when the tragedy happened in Wisconsin.
Right.
There are 26 million Sikhs in the world. We are the 5th largest religion in the world.
Wow.
Yet people don't even know we exist. Right? We are twice the number of our Jewish brothers and sisters. But you think about it, how important Israel is to where Sikhs, where people didn't know we existed. Here's the deal, the policies that are doing for our community, it's the fact that it's not even tracked by the government on the hate crimes, on bullying, on equality, we are not even a number. So no matter what we do, no matter how big our numbers are, we are not connected in the political side, we're not connected in the policy side, we don't matter, we don't exist, we're not big enough to make a difference. So I think it's interesting, the fact that the president didn't even come to Wisconsin to say, they didn't say, he said, I'm sorry for your people, right? I heard this conversation in CNN, Fox, we're so sorry for your loss. I said, should this be our people? Weren't they all Americans?
Yeah.
So I think we're so divided in this fact that we don't even, if you don't look, excuse me, but if you're not the normal blonde hair, blue eyed guy or somebody I can recognize, you're not part of this. And that is a wrong way to look at this. We are better than that.
There's usually a lot of, and I just talked about that a few weeks ago, that when you start listening to debates, or even when you hear the pundits talk, they always talk about, it's always they, them. They never talk about how we as voters. It's like it's a different set of people. It's the pundits, the politician, and then the electorate. I always thought that was very interesting, and it's really quite strange. Kind of like you are the same. You're basically of the same country, the same part of the exact same electorate, the same voice in a lot of cases as well. And I think that's something that we have to kind of pay attention to. And I always listen to politicians. They use more inclusive language than it's us and them language. It's really interesting.
And that's very true. I think naturally politics still keep us segregated and still keep us in our groups rather than making us one united States of America.
And again, it comes back to who's advocating for whom.
Beautiful. Well, this honestly has been a great panel only because it comes from so many different point of views, so many different backgrounds, and this is what America is. From the beginning to the end, this is what it will always be. So now that we're wrapping it up, thank you so much for being here. I want some closing statements, some closing thoughts, opinions that you would want to get out to our Transit 22 viewers.
Of course, during the election, during the campaign, down to the wire, you definitely want to follow us at Dryerbuzz on Twitter. We do a very unique spin on politics and telling people how to support the public channels, as we know that Romney wants to cut Big Bird, which means all of public access. Well, support C-SPAN and support these organizations that are talking about it. Make sure that you are in a great group for advocating what you really need in your household for this election.
Become as educated as you possibly can about each candidate. I think that's one of the things. Don't allow the debates themselves to be, to distort what you're saying. And I think or to distort where you want to be. So, and align your vote with the best candidate you can. I think one of the things that we lack in this country is voter education, and good voter education. Except for that, even good civics classes, except for that little half a semester we did in middle school. And so one of the things that we want to look at is, try to educate yourself as much as possible about each candidate, each party's platform. It's basically published at this point. If you believe in one or the other, go for it.
Share education. What about you, Navneet?
I think one of the most important pieces of this is that we as Americans have a succinct, clear role on our play. This is a privilege to be an American. The fact that we have a right to vote and we don't use it, and I think this should be a crime not to vote. And I feel like, look, if you want an equal opportunity, that's what everybody's looking for, is an equal opportunity. Then you must vote. To vote, you must educate. To educate, you must take action. So whatever you do, first understand that I'm going to take a role on it, a clear role. I'm going to educate, I'm going to have a discussion, and this starts at home. It starts with friends, it starts at dinner tables, it starts over beer, I don't know. But this starts. And it starts now because tomorrow is too late.
Exactly.
And one of the conversations from different backgrounds and different cultures and different religions who have a role and they're struggling with their own. So don't just look at it from my side. Look at yourself and say, how does this affect all of us, right? And that's the only way we become America, because we are better than what's happening right now.
All right, Transit 22, you've heard it. Now let's hear from you. So please get on your social media, Facebook, on Twitter, #Transit22, and let us know all your thoughts and what you think. Should politics and faith, do they coexist together? Please also connect with our panelists here today on their Facebook and Twitter, as well with us at Root TV. Well, wow, that was an amazing discussion. Yalanda, thank you so much for being on that panel. What did you think of it?
Thank you. That was great to see who's advocating for who. So let's see if the candidates are watching.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for our show today. Don't forget to like us on Facebook at Root TV.
And of course, we're going to follow you on Twitter at Root TV and the hashtag Transit22.
Right, and on there you can leave us with your thoughts about the show and future show. So until next week from Hippopotamus, thank you so much again. I am your host, Faye.
And I'm standing in for Big Red. My name's Yalanda. Spread the buzz.
Thank you. Have a great day.